Anywho, has anybody been able to take a look at some of the PDFs, at least the last two? And that the titles for that would be, well, three. I would have to include three from five to eight, because they're all numbered within the
Where are the
last.
PDFs exactly?
Excuse me.
Where are the PDFs?
Oh, they're the same place that they've been for the last 2 weeks. It's I keep renewing and updating the same post, so they're because all the PDFs are there, but I don't know if anybody's getting that. It says that it's everybody's emailed, so I don't know what's going on with that. But that's where they're at. It's
Oh, in the email. Okay, okay.
instead of making me a new post for each time, I'm I just been updating the old one that goes back to March 27th. So yeah, so they're all there. So from 5 through 8, the last three. So the titles of those are a multidimensional anatomy summary. The other one is Love Opens the Door, and the last one is our spirit/soul song, our personal spirit/soul song. Yeah,
So can I ask a question?
sure.
Is the monad the same as the um, unicy?
It's the reason why I keep referring back to the PDFs, because you'll know
Which,
you'll learn everything there. Okay, because I
which document do you want
summarize.
us to be looking at, Randy?
What's that?
Which document do you want us to be looking at right now?
Love Opens the Door.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can briefly go through that. I think that would be a good idea. Love opens the door, and that's the key to the whole thing. All right. What was the first creation, vibration, thought, intention? What's that intention? Keep going back to that. That's the key to understanding everything else. If you don't know what that is, then everything else is not going to make any sense. So it's about keeping things simple. Simple is good because simple allows your intention to be clear. When it's not clear, in other words, if it's complicated, if you have complicated math that you're looking at geometry structure, oh, look at its mathematical geometry, that just creates confusion. Or it makes it look like you're looking at something, oh, that's pretty. It takes away from really what the initial intention is. And that's our gateway. That's what makes the connection. For people that don't know anything about any of this stuff, to go full circle about what I said. This is not for the choir. This is not for the people sitting in the pews. I'm using these analogies purposely. It's for the people that are on the street walking around that ask questions that don't know anything about nothing. They need its simplest answer. And there is a simple answer with this. That's what I look for. This is what I learned to do a long time ago, and this is what needs to be presented. So when you look at the Chris code, you're going to see it repeating itself over and over and over again within different aspect of function. And you'll notice this to be names being changed or names given according to that function. So let's take a look at that. So again, the title of this is Love Opens the Door. That's the key to all of this. And we're talking about your love, your specific love, individuated love, all right? Yeah. So we have an inaudible expression that we see within Keylontic science called Raya Sotahala, called the Chris code. Okay, that's inaudible. You can't really say it, but this is all just a point of reference for a very specific focus of intention here. That's what I'm trying to communicate. So that's the Chris code or the seed atom. All right. If you look at the Azure, okay, and what is that called? It's called the seed atom. It's the same thing. Okay, so what is the Azure? Okay, we're going to get that. We're going to take a look at that. That and the monad and the taran, because again, that's the main focus. We'll kind of come back with this stuff. But when you look at the taran, before we go to the Azure, let's just look at the taran for a second and look at the idea of what the Chris code is and how many different names that there occurs with this being expressed within function. I think it's important for me to go over that. Otherwise, it's going to get kind of confusing. So the Chris code or the seed atom is known as the Chris Hala of the Ea. All that's not that important, okay? And you'll know what I mean as I continue. Okay, this is coming out of the first great void. So everything is like the void it's like the palette. Okay, this is where things happen, and then it expands outward and becomes an inversion. This is where the vibration begins, and then vibration turns into an inversion, which is the light. Okay, in the form, the structure of that. And we can see that within seismatics here. We take something, vibrate it with a certain liquid form or whatever, a pliable form, water, whatever it is. You can see the movement of structure within that vibration. Okay, so coming out of the first great void, or the Christ Hala'eya, meaning the tonal core of the outer first creation. Then let me jump ahead of this, okay? You can read this for yourself, so I don't need to do all of it. So the Christ Hala pattern is the encryption, or the form being taken with what we're going to call the Taran. This is the core first light unit. So the tonal core outer first creation, it's the same thing. Okay? It's just now it's unfolded. It's went from vibration now into light. Okay? And within structure and form. So the Taran is the Ekasha Eya La'a form. That's right in the center of the Azare. Okay? That's where it exists. The monad conduit goes through the back, for the anatomy of the body, goes back through the head, through the seventh dimensional, sixth dimensional, fifth, and then goes into the Taran. And then you have the star crystal seal, which is the sixth of the pineal gland, that sits there in the middle as well. And the Taran's right there in the center, which is the center point of your anatomy. That is the key. That is the Ekasha. That is the first creation, vibration, thought, intention. Because within that holds all the code. For what? That intention. What is that intention? For the benefit of all life. That's the simplest answer. It's for the benefit of all life. You know, and that's profound. You can spend a lot of time on that. Allow yourself to fall into that. So the Azare, the cosmic Christ seed atom. All right. The Christ seed atom allows the divine spirit force to emerge. So now we're talking about conduit. Okay, how it flows within the energetically, how it's flowing. Because the question is like, what's the monad? Okay, but the monad is connected within the Azare. We're talking about the heart of our anatomy. This is the key to the studying multidimensional anatomy. Okay, so these divine spirit force, you can refer to that as being the Holy Spirit. And so what does holy mean? Another word for holy is sanctified. So what does sanctified mean? It means to be set apart for a very specific intent. That's what that means. Okay, so the eternal internal frequency spectra, or flame is frequency, same thing, just repeating the same word in a different way. So when you run across flame, what is that? It's frequency, right? So a frequency that produces a certain color, that's the idea of the flame. So it's referred to. So it's a moving frequency, living, conscious aspect, right? So hence the reason why you would use the word flame, because when you look at it, that's what it's doing. Okay, it's moving in that way. This is the Amaria flame. Okay, the Holy Spirit is known as the Amaria flame. So which is divine love, right? Therefore, our divine love. So we're, again, to refer back to what I was mentioning before about how the structure, the original intent reconfigures when we align ourselves to our true nature. And again, making this simple, although maybe not so simple, you know, because some things that are so simple can be extremely overlooked. It's like, well, it possibly can't be that. That's too cliche. Is it? Is it really? You think all this would be put together in such a complicated way that nobody could understand it once they go into it? I don't think so. So the Christ seed atom opens the connection of the two-way door. The Anahazi term, or that's given for this, is the Nada'or, or the diamond doorway. Okay, This is between source and manifest fields of creation within it. So this is your way to come back and forward. That's the consistency of being with. You can always, the idea of free will, truly, as this construct is supposed to be, is to be able to come into it and be able to leave. You're able to change your mind. This is true free will. It's like, well, I have this mission, but I'm changing my mind. I don't want to do this. I'm going to do something else. That's free will. You should be able to do that. And if you were free, you could do that. You're not beholden. You're not beholden. Only to yourself. I mean, you're the one who came into this. You'll have all kinds of subdivision of your energy doing what you intended to do. And if it's not aligned according to what your original intent is, and even with your original intent, maybe you want to alter that and change that. You have the right to do that if you have the expression of free will, right? I mean, if it's really free will that you're able to express, you should be able to do that. So the Azare means the center point of eternal creation. The Azare, center point of eternal creation. What does that remind you of? The Unisai, the point of all union. It's all the same thing, folks. It's really all the same thing, okay? The monad means a spark of the living flame. That means your connection, right? So when you come into that, it's the center, or the center of the construct. It's referred to as the galactic core. Okay, this is your conduit line for the Nador, the two-way door. And what opens the door? Love opens the door. Don't forget that, because that's really spelled out quite clear. That's the original intent, and that is the doorway. And when we align ourselves to that is when healing begins within the body and reconfiguration back to the natural intended order, which is your intended order. And it's not a love, it's your love that does it. That's so important, because it goes back to sovereignty. It's all about you. It's your choices. When you look at the Gospel of Thomas, this is what Yeshua is talking about. It's about an internal awareness, an unspokenness. Go back to the idea of just the code itself. These are words that we're breaking down, downstepped, but all of it's inaudible. It's inaudible. So it's about the intent behind what we're doing. That's the focus, right? So it's all inward. If it's inaudible, then everything needs to be inward. Just like what Ralph was talking about earlier, about with his practice and what he's been doing. He's seeing those things happen within himself, not outside of himself, but within himself, from the core, right? And that's a very important thing to bring up. So the monad identity corresponds to the 8th dimensional consciousness band, because everything's conscious, right? It's a consciousness construct. So you can think that of as dimensions, but I prefer to think of it as awareness, energetic bands of awareness. And the energetic source seed code, the monad being the center of the oversoul matrix aspect within the construct, and the identity levels of the time matrix connected to the source seed code, the Huva bodies, as Ralph referred to earlier. And this is all located within the energy matrix, or our first point of entry, okay, which is the primal sound fields, also called the cosmic manifestation template. All right. Again, this is manifest reality. It's not who we are, it's how we're experiencing self differently. Let that be clear and understood. Okay. You're not born, you're not created, you're not spawned out of something. You've always been, okay? So the monad is the spark of the living flame, right? Which is, we're talking about the eternal aspect of self, energy, okay? The individuated, unique awareness of energy that makes up who we are and what we are, what we understand in respect to being in manifest reality. Like we use the word consciousness for the same reason. But in reality, there is no word for it. What we truly are can't be described. We can use words, but it's not something you can really describe, but we understand enough to be able to use certain words. So it is the living flow of primal life force currents. Let me emphasize that again. It's the living flow of primal life force currents. So when we talk about spirit and the difference between spirit and soul, soul is a subdivision of that energy. Spirit is the energy aspect, the individuated, unique energy. And so that also could be referred to as the Holy Spirit. Okay? So the monad is the living flow of primal life force currents, which means it is the Holy Spirit. We are that. And that's, you know, I've never heard anybody say this before. Nobody say this before. It's like there was always this thing, but we are. If you look at the beginning, you see that we are love, that we've always been. And if you look at the energy force, you see that another word for it is Holy Spirit. And then defining what Holy Spirit is, holy meaning sanctified, a very specific intention behind it. Okay? What does that sound like? It sounds like what we decided to do and what we are and the love that we are, the spirit energy that we are, is holy. So this is describing a conduit for us to flow through within the structure itself, designed to facilitate the will of the sentient God being. Okay? So it is the generator that brings, that is the monad, it's the generator, okay? You can look at it this way, of the energetic source into reality, or who we are into reality, okay? It provides the conscious energy from which our reality is made and maintained. So in other words, we're responsible for all of it. Yes, Ralph.
Yeah, and because of the monad is that particular point, and it has such a degree of importance. This is the main reason certain infiltrations, let's just call it that way, are accessing into the monad, and they create monad reversal and so on and so forth. Just how they created this lower chakras override of the Merkabahs of their Merkabahs of the chakras and stuff like that, and they project you into a whole another timeline.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Again, glad you brought that up. We're not subject to that once we know what things are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So we, first of all, the construct we know, time doesn't exist all. If it's a construct, we know that you start seeing the manipulation on a lot of levels, and it's just basically being aware of it. But your focus is on, well, you're a sovereign, and I'm going to go where I'm going to go, and and it's in the process of knowing. It's like to go back to when you align yourself to your true nature, the original divine order structure starts to realign and reconfigure back to the way it was. That is the simplest way to go about doing it, and it's your authenticity. Your authenticity is through your true love nature of who you are. Love opens the door. I'm going to keep pounding on that because it's true. That's what it is. It's simple, but maybe not so simple for some. But the long story short is that that's the process that causes you to begin to heal. Not going through a bunch of techniques or anything like that, because all that is tools to help you, but it's not the way that you do it. The way you do it is internal. And when you, and again, to emphasize what I mentioned earlier, this is not about the people that have all this language that they use and know what it means. It's about the people that don't know anything here. but they can feel what they feel. And the idea is to incite what they feel through a very simple process, and let them know this is what you are. You are the love you've always been. Those encouraging words to where a point where somebody is open enough that where they grab onto it and they say, yes. Oh, that yes is a big thing, man. That yes of saying, I am. Ooh, oh, that's powerful when you really understand what it means, right? And that's that's through intent. It doesn't have to be words. It's just the feeling. And it's about inciting that feeling with those that don't know or beginning to know. Remember, you don't have to learn a bunch of stuff. Learning's great, learning's good, but you need only to know that, number one, you are the love that you've always been. You are the divinity. You are divine equally here as you are with anything or any other aspect of self within this universal construct and beyond. You're always the same. That's one of the things I come to notice being out of body and having different experiences within this lifetime, when I was able to go back and relive those moments to detail. One of the things that stood out for me more than anything else is that I'm always the same. I don't have to change because I'm always perfect, and so is everyone else. Don't allow the manifest form to confuse you on this and the behavior that takes place with the manifest reality. Never allow that to confuse you. That is not really what these beings are. Even the fallen and the worst conditions you can be in, and we've all been there and we all participated in it. This is not what we are. Okay? What we are is what we are that transcends all creation. And so again, the fuel for everything, the reason for that first vibration, thought, intention, is for the benefit of all life. Well, what's the fuel for that? Love holds it all together. Again, to reemphasize, we're the ones that's doing all this because it's a collective effort. It's not about one being doing anything. If one being says that they're doing everything, then one needs to ignore that being. Because they're so full of themselves, they haven't snapped out of it yet. And I understand why they would. That's another subject altogether. But all right, so anchoring the monad, right? When anchoring the monad, it's interesting. One of the two aspects that causes a response, and this is going to be in connection to your personal spirit song or soul song. Okay. When anchoring, there's a gradual pulling together in relationship to your throat chakra and your emotional body, okay, or chakra, right? So D2 and D5, right? That's very interesting. And when we get into the personal soul song, you're going to see how relevant that is, okay? It's quite simple, but a lot of this stuff's overlooked. I don't know anybody else is doing any of this stuff. They're communicating chaos stuff, but they're not connecting things that need to be connected because it's not being taught. It's not even being taught in chelantic science. No offense to anybody, but things that I get it comes through my spirit, and I don't even know what it is sometimes until I see it and I go, oh, okay, that's the reason why I was given this, It's important and it's simple. That's the importance of it. Again, going back to simplicity. Not trying to toot my horn, but somebody's got to do it. I've been encouraging myself for decades now. So this, I've been doing this alone for a long time. Anyhow, I think that's enough at this point. I think you can go through it. It's important for everybody to be able to go through the PDF. So it would be, otherwise this will take like another couple hours, and I don't really want to do that.